What's up in War Eagle War Report family? You got Ike Jones back with another morning drop, and today we are talking about which freshmen have impressed the most throughout the spring. Who should you be buying stock in right here if you're an Auburn fan? Let's talk about it. Y'all know how we do War Report style. Let's drop it on them.
You are now listening to the War Report. Drop.
We're in here talking a little bit of Auburn football. Appreciate everybody who has decided to jump in here and listen to me talk a little bit about Auburn football, man. You guys are awesome. Make sure you're sharing the content with somebody out there. If you're listening on podcast, definitely do that as well. Let's jump in and talk about Auburn football freshmen. We've gone through each of the position groups. Well, apologies to the specialists out there. I didn't do anything particularly on the specialists by themselves. But there are some dynamic specialists out there at the kicker position that have come on board. We've got some good punters. You know, Oscar Chapman, of course, is still here with Auburn. And you've got some really great players that are there in the long snapper position. I don't want to make it seem as if they don't matter. I just didn't devote a particular morning drop to any of those specialists, kickers, punters, or long snappers. But we do have some really great ones, and I will be talking about them at a later time when we get into some other things. However, I do want to talk about the freshmen that we have coming in that I think that Auburn fans should buy stock in. And I'm going to talk about everybody except for Cam Coleman because I think that's an obvious one that everybody would know and respect. That is no disrespect to Cam Coleman. I absolutely believe that Auburn fans should buy into the hype that Cam Coleman is going to play significant snaps at the wide receiver position. He is at a position of need for the things that Coach Hugh Freeze wants to do with the big outside receivers that have good speed, right? He's got speed for a wide receiver, period, but he's got excellent speed for his size. And then his catch radius is amazing. So again, definitely buy stock in Cam Coleman. This video is not to say don't do that. It's to kind of give a little bit of like this, maybe some other guys who aren't going to be first on everybody's thought process. And I am only talking about freshmen right now. So not redshirt freshmen, not transfers, none of that stuff. Buying stock in the true freshmen that have come into this program straight out of high school. Who are the guys that I anticipate could potentially come in and contribute immediately for Auburn? I am going to start that conversation off with Malik Blockton. For those that don't know, Malik Blockton is the younger brother of Marcus Harris, who has exited the program. He is going to try to make his future in the NFL, and I think that he has a good chance of having his name called on draft day. Probably a day 2 guy. But I think Malik Blockton is going to be able to come in and contribute immediately. This is a defensive line unit that is not particularly deep. And I don't know that there are a lot of guys in front of him that are going to take up snaps where I don't think Malik Blockton can come in. When we look at the defensive line group, and we've talked about this group before, you've got, of course, as returners coming back into that room, guys like Keldrick Falk, who I think is going to be good, and we'll talk about him more. Darren Reed, Zeke Walker is there. Trill Carter, the transfer in. Gage Keys coming in as a transfer. Bobby Jamison Travis is there, and then Jason Jones. But when I list off those guys, and if you're going to have a rotation that's going to be 6 to 8 guys deep, I didn't name off 8 guys, right? So Malik Blockton is a guy who I expect can come in and contribute immediately. He already has a good frame, 6'3", 281. But he is stacked out there. Like, he really looks like he's ready to be an SEC caliber guy from his physical makeup already. He's out there ready to do that sort of thing. And I think that he's come along well enough. I don't know that he's going to be, Marcus Harris year 1. But I do think that he's going to have the ability to come in and rotate and really give some quality snaps for Auburn. I don't anticipate him right now, unless something changes in the transfer portal post-spring, that he's a guy who's going to be redshirting this season. I think that Malik Blockton is a guy who can come in and he can contribute immediately to this team, to the defensive line unit that is going to need some more bodies out there rotating to make sure that they can do everything that they want to be able to do in this DJ Durkin defense. And I think that he's going to get his opportunity. So I am saying right now, buy stock in Malik Blockton. He's someone who can come in and make this Auburn team better in his freshman season. I think that he's going to be able to do that. Next up, I think we're going to head over and talk a little bit more about the front, and we're talking about Amarous Williams. I think that he is a young man who, and I was torn between this and which of the guys I was going to talk about that would be playing potentially up there on the defensive front between him and Jamonte Waller. But I've heard good things. Heard some really good things. And again, this is not to say don't buy stock in other guys. I think Amarous Williams is just a guy who he may be a little bit more of a physical freak right now and, freak athlete type of guy. And I think that he's going to have the ability to come in and play immediately. 6'2", 253. He's going to be playing more like a defensive end, but I think because he has that pass rushing specialist skill set, I think that he's a guy that you could bring in and he can come in sub packages and really just kind of create havoc in some of those the third and long scenarios or the third and Auburn scenarios for those that want to use that phrase out there that Auburn has struggled to be able to get to the quarterbacks. I think he's a guy who's going to be able to provide that immediate up the field pass rush that allows you to be able to scare defenses into scare offenses and wanting to get the ball out a little bit more quickly or sliding protection in his direction. When you've got him and you've got a guy like Jamonte Waller and you've got a guy like Jalen McLeod, who I think Jalen McLeod's going to have a phenomenal year for Auburn, out there on the field or have the potential of unleashing any combination of those guys on a third and long situation. You have a situation where your defense is looking a little bit more formidable in those scenarios, and the pass rush can get there a little bit more immediately. Now, you've got to be disciplined in that, of course. That's a whole other thing about when you have the mobile quarterbacks that can escape that pressure. But if you've got guys that can get there quickly, guys who are sudden and athletic in that way that I think that Williams is, you're going to be in a scenario where it just makes it more difficult for offensive coordinators to scheme something up. You've got to make different kinds of decisions on third and long when you've got those kind of athletes coming and potentially applying pressure to your quarterback and collapsing that pocket more quickly than Auburn has done. When Auburn's had a premier pass rusher, when Auburn has had a pass rush that has been really difficult for other teams to deal with, whether that's been in, just spurts in a particular game or for the entirety of the season, that defense has looked very, very formidable. When you already have the talent that's in there in the defensive backfield, adding a guy like Williams to this team that can come in and be a pass rusher, I think, in a very unique way, is going to be something that's going to pay dividends for Auburn. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he's able to do this season. I'm saying buy stock in this young man right now. He's going to be out there making Auburn fans proud. Looking forward to what he can contribute. All right, before I get into my last name that I have here, I do want to give some quick shout outs to the sponsors of today's War Report, and that is our folks over at BetUS. Make sure that you head over to BetUS. They have been a great sponsor of us during this March Madness time. I know Auburn fans a little disappointed that the Auburn basketball team is not able to participate in this, but that doesn't mean that you all can't still go out there and place some bets on some great things going on right now in all sports, not just about basketball, but you've got things that are happening right now with baseball. You've got things that are happening with the NBA. You can go out there, betus.com, use the link in the description to be able to get 125% sign up bonus up to $2,500 using that link. 24-hour payouts. They've been a great sponsor. Make sure you hit them up, betus.com, in the link in the description of this video, and you will not regret it. All right, let's get back over into the conversation. And now, before I get into my final name on this list, I do want to, talk about some other guys that I think have performed really well that are freshmen out here. I've heard good things about. I've already mentioned one of those guys in Jamonte Waller that I think is going to be able to come out there and contribute for Auburn pretty immediately at the rush end position. I think that room being so thin, he and Joseph Phillips, I think, are the big guys, are the big names that you want to watch from that buck position that will have an opportunity to go out there and compete for snaps. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. I do anticipate Auburn going and trying to find some more depth in the transfer portal for that room so that they aren't relying on two true freshmen to be able to contribute there. The only other guys are redshirt freshman and Brenton Williams that's behind Jalen McLeod. So I do anticipate, them at least in the Auburn staff trying to go and get one more guy to fit into that room that's that's got a little more experience. I think that was a place where they had hoped Cam Riley could slide in there and he would be able to provide some of that, but he did exit via the transfer portal. But you do have some good guys in that room, and Waller and Joe Phillips to be able to come in and give you some quality snaps if needed. And I do anticipate they're going to need those guys at some point during the season. So definitely want to make sure I give a shout out there. And the other guy I want to talk about here is TJ Lindsey. I think TJ Lindsey, from just a size perspective, is going to be a guy who can give you some quality snaps. I already talked about the defensive line when I talked about Malik Blockton and Amarous Williams. TJ Lindsey is a guy I think that is really capable of coming in and giving some quality snaps as well, and may be called upon again as a true freshman to come in there and do that just because of the depth. Another room that I do anticipate during the post-spring transfer portal window that Auburn will try to get some more experience and depth in there to be able to make sure they can solidify that rotation and potentially have the ability to redshirt one of these guys if they need to. It's not going to be one of those things where you can come in and dominate necessarily as a true freshman in the trenches. It's not impossible, but it is difficult to do. And so having some more quality experience depth that can come in and supplement those younger guys if necessary is going to be something I expect Auburn to do. Anyway, let's get into my final true freshman guy who I think you should be buying stock in. And I've talked about this young man before. I'm going to talk about him again. I'm talking about Jay Crawford. I think that he is going to be a guy that's going to get into this rotation at the defensive back unit. Right now, he is really impressing. I've heard really good things about him, and I'm going to continue to drive. I'm going to go Mike G on this thing. Well, I'm going to go Ike Jones as far as Keontae Scott. I'm going to be saying, hey, Jay Crawford, look out for Jay Crawford. The way that Mike G talks about Jay Fair, the way you've heard me talk about Keontae Scott, right now I am talking about Jay Crawford. He's a guy who has the athleticism. He has the ability to compete. He's got the will to compete out there at that position. He's got the physicality to be able to compete at that position. And he's just got the skill, right? Like there are some guys who have all the speed, all the strength, all of the the physicality. They just they can't put it all together. He's a guy I think that's going to put it all together, and he's going to be able to do it really quickly. The same way I felt like K.N. Lee last season was a guy who was going to come in and he's going to compete. I think the difference here for those two guys is I actually think that Crawford, from a physicality standpoint, as far as speed specifically, is maybe a little more ready from day one. K.N. Lee, I think, maybe has just kind of a little bit more of I think he's a little bit more of a physical corner in that respect. I just think that the speed that Crawford has versus K.N. Lee, I don't know. Maybe, listen, you can come correct me. If you was in a foot race with Crawford, who's going to win that thing? I put my money on Crawford right now, but I don't know. You could come tell me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I think Crawford's going to be a guy that's going to be able to contribute early and often for the Auburn Tigers in his freshman season. Look out for Jay Crawford. So Malik Blockton, Amarous Williams, Jay Crawford, those are the guys that Ike Jones thinks is going to be able to contribute early in their freshman campaigns for Auburn. But I want to hear who you think. Is there somebody who you think I'm overhyping? Is there somebody who you think I am undervaluing here a little bit? Let me know what you all think right down there in the comments. Love to see your perspectives on all of those things. But I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to stop talking. As always, the Morning Drop is brought to you by the good folks over at the Rogue Shop. Make sure you head over there, rogueshop.com. Use code Rapport when you do. Get you a little something off of the purchase from America's #1 online dispensary. Sleep, stress, pain, anxiety relief. They've got you covered right there at the Rogue Shop. Before you get out of here, please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel, and please share the content with somebody. We always appreciate those of you who continue to do that. We'll be back at you with more Morning Drop tomorrow. But until then, and as always, War Eagle.